Get her out of my boardroom, CEO Daniel Crawford snapped as the cleaner stood beside a warning everyone had ignored. Her gloves were damp, her uniform smelled of bleach, and 12 executives watched security close in.
I want her removed from the building immediately.
Why would a woman who emptied their
Get
trash
security
know the
up here now.
company's new hospital system could fail within hours? Why did she carry a sealed envelope for a visitor no one expected? And why, when the elevator opened, did that visitor look past the CEO and call the cleaner by her full name? By sunset, one cruel decision would expose years of silence and force an entire company to decide what dignity was worth. Stay to the end, because the person they dismissed understood what was coming. Get her out of my boardroom. Daniel Crawford's voice cut through the room at 9:17 a.m. Evelyn Reed stood at the far end of the glass table with one damp glove still on. A drop of gray water gathered at her fingertip and fell onto the white carpet. No one moved. The room smelled of coffee and rain. The launch dashboard behind Daniel showed 43 minutes. In one corner, a red bar pulsed. Medication alert queue. Delay detected. Daniel did not turn around. This meeting is restricted, Lydia Voss said, aligning a silver pen with her folder. How did she get in? The service door, Evelyn answered. I wasn't asking you. Thomas Blake, head of security, stepped from the wall. He moved carefully on his left knee, reaching for Evelyn's elbow. She folded the warning printout once. The queue is holding alerts long enough to hide a conflict between prescriptions. You clean offices. Yes. You do not interrupt board meetings. No. The answer made two directors look up. Then we understand each other, Daniel said. Evelyn placed the paper on the glass. Call St. Anne's test unit. Ask for the overnight medication log. Lydia's pen stopped. Nathan Cole shifted in his chair. His collar was damp at the throat. The anomalies were reviewed. By whom? Lydia answered first. That information is not available to contractors. The countdown changed to 42 minutes. Rain dragged silver lines down the windows. A coffee machine hissed nearby. Daniel pushed back his chair. Thomas. Evelyn took a softened, sealed envelope from her uniform. This is for Adrian Cross. Daniel laughed once. There is no Adrian Cross on today's schedule. He won't be on your schedule. Lydia looked up fully for the first time. Thomas extended his hand. Ma'am, come with me. After he makes the call. That is not your decision, Daniel said. The red warning vanished, then returned. An assistant lowered her eyes. A director polished clean glasses. Nobody spoke. Thomas touched her elbow. The drop from her glove had spread into a dark stain on the carpet. Daniel pointed toward the hall. Now. Evelyn let Thomas guide her 2 steps, then turned to Nathan. How many seconds was the longest delay? Nathan's coffee cup clicked against his ring. Lydia said, Do not answer. Nathan stared at the table. 412. Daniel faced him. You told me 90. That was the median. You signed the report. I signed the summary Lydia approved. Lydia stood so fast her chair struck the credenza. This is why unverified data should not be discussed in front of unauthorized personnel. Evelyn held the envelope against her chest. 412 seconds is enough. For what? A director asked. Her eyes settled on the countdown. For a hospital to trust silence. The elevator chimed beyond the glass wall. Everyone turned. The indicator reached 32 and paused. Thomas's grip loosened without leaving her arm. Daniel straightened his jacket, suddenly uncertain. The doors opened. A tall man in a rain-dark coat stepped into the corridor carrying a closed black umbrella. He looked through the glass, past the CEO and directly at Evelyn. At 9:04 p.m., hours before the boardroom doors closed, Evelyn Reed pushed a yellow cleaning cart onto the executive floor. The elevator smelled of warm metal and lemon. Most offices were dark, but the conference wing glowed through smoked glass while rain tapped the windows. Sarah Kim sat behind reception with one shoe off. "You're late," she said, then checked the clock. "No, I'm early." "The bus stalled on Franklin." "You always take the bus?" "It stops near my apartment." Sarah glanced at Evelyn's uniform. "People here expense cars for crossing the street." Evelyn turned Sarah's mug handle toward her. "That must save dangerous minutes." Sarah laughed. The sound died when Lydia Voss emerged. "Executive offices first," Lydia said. "No vacuuming near strategy, and nothing on a desk is to be moved." "Understood. Even if it looks like trash." At the next corner, a young man caught the elevator. He was 23, thin, with flattened black hair and a twisted badge. "I'm Milo Chen." Systems intern. Temporary badge. Permanent panic. "Evelyn." He read her name tag. "Long night?" "Looks that way." The doors opened on 28. Milo stepped out. The coffee machine upstairs eats dollar bills. Hit the lower panel twice. Useful intelligence. He smiled as if she had promoted him. By 10:10, Daniel Crawford's suite smelled of cedar and cold espresso. A display counted down to the hospital platform launch, 11:50:03. From the strategy room came a man's voice. "We can rerun the Q test overnight." "No," Daniel said. "We present clean numbers at 8. Lydia replied, "Lower." "Nathan says the delay reproduced twice." "Then Nathan needs a better definition of reproducible." Paper snapped. Evelyn reached into her shirt pocket. The edge of an old photograph scraped her finger. She drew it out enough to see Maggie's yellow scarf and one laughing eye. The door opened. Daniel stood there with his sleeves folded precisely. He looked at the cart before he looked at Evelyn. "Were you listening?" "I was waiting to clean the room." "There is nothing to clean." Behind him, 3 cups overflowed with grounds. "Then I'll return later." "Do that." At 10:37, Milo appeared with a laptop and 2 sandwiches. "You were right," he whispered. "Long night." "I didn't say that." "You had the face." "What face?" "The one doctors have before telling you to sit down." Her hand tightened around the cloth. "Sorry," Milo said. "No need." A red notification flashed on his screen before he closed it. Evelyn caught 6 words. "Alert queue latency above safe threshold." "Is that from tonight?" "I'm not allowed to discuss testing." "Then don't." She wiped the glass. In its reflection, he hesitated. "It happened in 3 simulations," he said. "Nathan thinks it's routing." "And Lydia?" "She thinks tomorrow matters more." The lights dimmed at 11. Cold air settled from the vents. Behind a closed door, a printer started by itself. Evelyn folded Maggie's photograph and returned it to her pocket. "Go home, Milo." He stared toward the conference wing. "Are you?" She listened to the printer feeding pages into the dark. "Not yet." The first sheet lay face down on the carpet, marked by a single red line. At 6:45 a.m., the launch clock read 02:15:00. Daniel Crawford stood beneath it with a microphone and coffee. Again, a slide advanced. Nova Crest Care Link. Safer decisions, faster response. Nathan Cole stayed near the wall. "We still need the overnight queue report. You need to finish the presentation." The delay reproduced after midnight. "Twice?" Lydia Voss said. 3 times. The 3rd run was incomplete. It stopped because the alert queue locked. Evelyn passed the open door with a trash liner over one arm. She slowed when Nathan said, "The sequence resembles a silent hold." Her fingers tightened around the plastic. Daniel tapped the microphone. Investors hear silent and imagine catastrophe. It's a technical term. It is now an unnecessary term. Lydia opened the report. A red line glowed near the bottom. "What does the hospital see during the hold?" Daniel asked. Nathan waited. "Nothing." "Then there is nothing to demonstrate." Evelyn stepped inside. "Excuse me." Daniel turned as if a machine had spoken. "The wastebasket." Lydia moved it with her shoe. "Quickly." Evelyn knelt. Cold seeped through her trousers. On the screen, acknowledgement window exceeded. Legacy priority route. That wording had not been used in years. Beneath a napkin lay a discarded page with the same red header. Nathan noticed. "That's confidential." "Then it shouldn't be in an open bin." Daniel lowered the microphone. "Is there a problem?" "No," Lydia said, closing the warning. "A housekeeping delay." Evelyn stood. "Who approved the legacy route?" Nathan's face went still. "The report references a priority path that predates this queue," Evelyn said. Lydia's silver pen stopped. Then she smiled. "You misread a label." "Perhaps." "You did." Daniel checked the clock. "We are behind because a cleaner wants a seminar." Nathan looked down. Evelyn moved toward the door. "Leave the bag," Lydia said. "Why?" "It contains company material." "You called it trash." Lydia crossed the room, citrus perfume cutting through stale coffee. She removed the page, folded it, and slid it into a blue folder. "There. Now it doesn't." Daniel raised the microphone. From the top. In the service alcove, Evelyn touched the photograph in her pocket. Its edge scratched her skin. Maggie had used the phrase silent hold during the final week of testing an older hospital platform. A door opened behind her. Nathan stood under the fluorescent light. "How do you know that term?" he whispered. Evelyn looked toward Lydia's folder. "I know what happens when people decide silence is safer than delay." Daniel called Nathan's name. He flinched. "You should forget what you saw." "Can you?" His fingers missed the handle once. Then he went inside. At 6:58, Lydia entered Daniel's office. Evelyn cleaned the glass outside while their voices carried through a gap. "The board cannot see that line," Daniel said. "They won't. And Nathan. He has a son. He won't risk his insurance. Remove the exception from the summary." Lydia aligned her silver pen with the report, clicked once, and deleted the red line. The warning vanished. Evelyn watched the blank space remain while the clock above reception kept counting down. At 7:12 a.m., Evelyn found the missing report beneath shredded catering receipts. The corridor smelled of cardboard and soap. A red strip clung to her sleeve. She peeled it free, found another, and spread the fragments on a trash liner. Milo arrived with 2 paper cups. "Coffee?" "No." "You say that like it's dangerous." "Sometimes it is." He watched her align the pieces into a table of delays. His smile faded. "Where did you get that?" "Outside strategy." That report was meant to be archived. Someone preferred confetti. Evelyn joined 2 edges and read beneath the red header. Node 3 held a medication conflict for 6 minutes and 52 seconds. Milo crouched. "You read system logs?" "I read patterns." "You skipped the headings and found the exception path." Footsteps approached. Nathan Cole entered with his coat over one arm. "What are you doing?" Milo stood too fast and struck the cart. Coffee spilled across its lid. Evelyn lifted the fragments. Nathan took one piece. "These are internal results. They were discarded. That doesn't make them yours. It makes them ignored." His jaw tightened. You don't understand them. Evelyn pointed to a column. The alerts were generated on time. The delay began after routing. Nathan glanced at Milo. She's right, Milo said. You should be at your desk. I was bringing coffee. Bring it somewhere else. Milo left, phone already in hand. Nathan lowered his voice. Stop asking questions. Is the system safe? That is not a question you get to ask. Patients will ask it without knowing. Nathan rubbed his thumb along his coat seam. The test environment isn't live. Then call one pilot hospital. We have procedures. You have a clock. The launch display read 1:47:31. Evelyn tapped Legacy Priority Route. Who restored this? His expression shifted. Lydia wanted compatibility with older databases, he said. It was temporary. Temporary paths become permanent when schedules matter more. How would you know? Systems remember every shortcut. The records room door opened. Lydia stood there, silver pen in hand. Give me the paper. Nathan stepped forward. It's a discarded draft. Then you won't mind. Evelyn offered it. Lydia pinched the corner as if it were stained. You are assigned to sanitation, Lydia said. Not compliance. I asked one question. You created disruption. Milo had returned. Sarah stood beside him with visitor badges. Neither spoke. Lydia tore the page across the red line. The sound was small. Everyone heard it. She dropped both halves into Evelyn's cart. Finish your floor. Evelyn looked at Nathan. Was 6 minutes and 52 seconds the longest delay? He stared at the wet tile. No. Lydia turned. Nathan's fingers could not fasten his coat button. It was the longest delay they kept in the summary. The elevator chimed. Daniel Crawford's voice carried from reception. Lydia, now. She walked away. Milo waited for the door to close, then raised his phone. I got the page. On the screen, the torn report looked whole again. Evelyn enlarged the corner beneath Lydia's thumb. Beside the test identifier were 3 faded letters she had not seen in 19 years. At 7:28 a.m., Evelyn stood outside Lydia Voss's office with the photographed report open on Milo's phone. The faded letters were ERS. Lydia looked up. Why are you here again? To ask for 6 hours. For cleaning? For testing. Lydia's office smelled of citrus. Her silver pen lay parallel to the desk edge. Milo stayed by the door. I recovered the deleted image. Lydia's eyes narrowed. You accessed restricted material? It was on my phone. Evelyn set it face up. ERS means Emergency Routing Safeguard. Nathan entered and closed the door. Daniel's voice carried through the glass. Lydia aligned the pen. It means nothing. It was removed 19 years ago. You are a contract cleaner. Yes. You do not have 19-year-old knowledge of our system. Nathan studied her. Where did you hear that phrase? From someone who learned what happens when an alert arrives too late. Maggie's photograph pressed against Evelyn's ribs. Lydia rose. This conversation is over. Run the queue under full load, Evelyn said. Keep the legacy route active. 6 hours will show whether the hold expands. We launch in 90 minutes. Then 90 minutes is what remains. You think calm speech makes this acceptable? No, the numbers do. Sarah opened the door halfway. Daniel wants the revised summary. 2 minutes. Sarah saw the red columns, then lowered her eyes. Lydia faced Nathan. Confirm the anomaly is contained. He did not answer. Confirm it. The test set is too small. His fingers tightened on his coat. Evelyn said, He cannot make uncertainty disappear by calling it contained. Lydia came around the desk. Do you know what delay costs? Hospitals reconsider contracts. Employees fear for payroll. Families lose certainty because one person wanted caution. And what do patients lose? That is enough. Lydia deleted the image from Milo's phone and returned it. The cloud copy remains, Milo said. Her hand stopped. Go to your desk. I'm assigned to testing. You're assigned to whatever I say until noon. Milo stayed where he was. Evelyn smoothed a cloth across her palm. You recognized the initials. The pen clicked. An obsolete label. You stopped looking at me when you did. The pen clicked again. Sarah stayed in the doorway. Nathan stared at the carpet. Lydia crossed to the access panel and entered Evelyn's badge number. What are you doing? Nathan asked. Correcting a boundary. The panel chimed. She has no access above floor 24, Lydia said. Sarah, notify building services. If she enters a technical area, call security. Sarah swallowed. What reason? Operational interference. Evelyn returned the cloth to her cart. Write exactly that. Lydia frowned. You find this amusing? No, I want an accurate record. Daniel appeared beyond the glass. We're ready, Lydia said. He glanced at Evelyn. Why is she here? She was leaving. As Lydia stepped out, her folder shifted open. The legacy line was gone, but a note remained. Suppress until post-launch. Lydia saw Evelyn reading and snapped the folder shut. Then, loud enough for reception to hear, she told Sarah, From now on, the cleaner stays away from anything that matters. At 7:41 a.m., Milo led Evelyn behind the server room, where cold air pressed through her uniform. I shouldn't be doing this, he whispered. You already did. The panel rejected Evelyn's badge. Milo used his own. Blue lights pulsed across the racks. Nathan Cole stood at a terminal, one hand braced against the desk. You need to leave, he said. The overnight logs are still here, Milo replied. Not for long. Nathan opened a window. 3 hospitals appeared in separate columns, showing the same delay under load. Evelyn leaned closer. Run the conflict alert. I did. Again. Nathan pressed a key. A test prescription entered the queue. The screen showed generated, then nothing. Milo counted. 10, 11, 12. At 40 seconds, the status changed to pending route. That should be immediate, Milo said. Under 5, Nathan answered. The timer reached 90. Evelyn traced the branching path with one finger. The safeguard is redirecting instead of releasing. Nathan looked at her. That architecture was retired before I joined. Not all of it. How do you know? She stayed silent. At 2 minutes, the alert appeared. Milo swallowed. If this were live, don't finish that, Nathan said. A message flashed. Lydia Voss, delete all non-final test runs. His thumb hovered. Back them up, Evelyn said. You don't understand what she can do. Then explain. My son's treatment is covered through this job. Specialists, therapy, everything. His voice thinned. If I'm dismissed, there is no transition. Evelyn folded her damp glove into her pocket. What is his name? Nathan's eyes hardened. Don't. I'm not using him against you. That is what people say before they do. On his lock screen, a boy in hospital pajamas grinned beside a paper moon. Owen, Nathan said. Evelyn nodded. Then save it for Owen. He gave a broken laugh. You make it sound simple. No, I make it sound like a choice. The door opened. Sarah Kim stood in the passage, breathless, her phone held low. Lydia is coming, she said. Security, too. Nathan reached for delete. Milo caught his wrist. Wait. Move. We can export it. And send it where? Milo looked at Evelyn. She recited an address from memory. Public integrity intake. Subject line, clinical Q variance. Nathan stared at her. That mailbox isn't public. It is, if you know why it exists. Footsteps struck the corridor. Sarah lifted her phone. A red dot glowed on the screen. You're recording? Nathan asked. I started when Lydia told Daniel she'd bury the Q report. The handle moved. Nathan pulled free and selected the test files. Delete and export sat side by side. The door swung inward. Lydia entered with Thomas Blake behind her. What is happening? No one answered. Her gaze moved from Milo's phone to Sarah's, then to the diagnostic screen. Nathan, she said softly, delete it. The timer kept climbing. Nathan's fingers shook above the keyboard. Evelyn stepped between Lydia and the monitor. Before you erase it, read the hospital names. Lydia's jaw tightened. Thomas, remove her. Thomas stepped forward. Sarah raised the phone higher. The export bar appeared at 1%. Stop the export. Lydia's voice barely rose above the server fans, but Thomas Blake moved at once. He closed Milo's laptop. The progress bar vanished at 12%. Milo flinched. You interrupted the transfer. I prevented theft, Lydia said. At 7:44 a.m., Daniel Crawford entered without a jacket. What am I looking at? A contractor accessed restricted systems with an intern's help, Lydia said. Evelyn stepped away from the terminal. The alert delay reached 2 minutes. Daniel glanced at Nathan. Is that true? Nathan's lips parted. Lydia touched his sleeve. The test was not validated. The fans filled the pause. The environment was under artificial load, Nathan said. That wasn't my question. The result needs review. Then review it after launch. Milo reopened the laptop. 3 pilot hospitals show the same pattern. You're an intern, Daniel said. I can still read a timer. Sarah stood in the passage with her phone against her skirt. Employees watched through the glass. Daniel faced Evelyn. You entered a restricted area and encouraged staff to copy proprietary data. I asked them not to erase evidence. You inserted yourself into work you do not understand. Call one hospital. No. Ask whether their overnight alerts arrived on time. This conversation is finished. He took the temporary badge from her fingers, read contractor, and dropped it beside the cleaning bucket. It landed face up in soapy water. The photograph blurred first. Nobody bent to pick it up. Beyond the glass, an assistant pressed the elevator button without looking at Evelyn. 2 engineers stopped speaking. Sarah's phone trembled against her leg. Thomas shifted his weight. Ma'am, come with me. Evelyn watched the water creep over her name. Daniel, Nathan said. The CEO turned. Nathan's fingers missed his coat button twice. The longest delay wasn't 2 minutes. Lydia's face hardened. Nathan. It was 6 minutes and 52 seconds. A murmur moved through the corridor. And you chose now to mention this? I mentioned it last night. You submitted a summary. Lydia changed it. Her silver pen clicked once. Daniel stepped closer to Evelyn. You've created enough confusion. The system created it. You are no longer authorized to remain in this building. Call St. Anne's. Thomas. Thomas took her by the elbow. Evelyn did not resist. As they entered the corridor, the crowd opened. Shoes scraped. Someone crushed a paper cup. Milo moved forward, but Sarah caught his sleeve. Evelyn stopped beside the bucket. Daniel's voice sharpened. Keep moving. She bent and lifted the badge from the gray water. She wiped it once on her uniform. Her picture had blurred, but her name remained. You can remove the badge, she said. The delay will still be there. For 1 second, Daniel had no answer. Then he pointed toward the elevators. "Escort her out." Thomas guided her forward. Behind them, Lydia ordered the server room cleared. Nathan leaned close as Evelyn passed. "The logs replicated," he whispered. "She can't reach every copy." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Before Evelyn stepped inside, the launch screen above reception flickered red. The security room had no windows. A vent breathed cold air across Evelyn's ankles. Thomas Blake closed the door at 7:51 a.m. and placed her phone, wet badge, and sealed envelope beyond the glass partition. "You'll wait until legal decides what this is." "What do you think it is?" Thomas glanced at the envelope. "Above my pay grade. Don't make this harder." He left. The metal chair pulled heat through Evelyn's uniform. Beyond the glass, her phone lit. Maggie's face appeared. Yellow scarf, wind-blown hair, 19 forever. Evelyn looked away. At 7:56, Lydia entered with a tablet. "Your access was revoked." "I noticed. You entered a restricted area and encouraged theft of company data." "I encouraged preservation of a safety record." Lydia slid over a form. "Sign that you acted without authorization and leave quietly. No police report." "And Milo?" "That depends on how cooperative people are." Evelyn folded the page once and pushed it back. Lydia's pen clicked. "You are protecting people who will deny helping you." "Then let them." "You think Daniel will listen because you stayed calm?" "No." "Then what is this?" Evelyn looked through the glass at Maggie's photograph. "One more attempt." Lydia followed her gaze. "Your daughter?" Evelyn said nothing. "You have 10 minutes." When the door shut, the room seemed smaller. 19 years earlier, a room had smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. Maggie had called from a hospital bed after an alert failed to reach the right screen. Evelyn had been in a conference room arguing about a rollout. "Mom, they keep saying the system is updating." "I'm coming." "You always say that." Then came only a monitor and someone whispering beyond the line. Evelyn pressed her thumbnail into the table seam until the memory loosened. At 8:03, her phone lit again. An unlisted missed call. Adrian. She stood. The envelope lay 3 feet away. A younger guard appeared outside. His badge read, "Ellis." "I need that call returned." "I can't give you the phone." "Read the last 4 digits." He hesitated. 2714. "Tell Thomas the visitor is already in the city." "What visitor?" "The one named on the envelope." "Ms. Voss said nobody was scheduled." "He does not work for her." The guard stepped back. Faint applause came through the wall. For 1 minute, Evelyn imagined leaving. Let Daniel activate it. Let regulators find the delay. Let someone else carry the warning. Her fingers reached for the empty pocket where Maggie's photograph should have been. Nothing. That absence hurt more than the cold. At 8:07, Evelyn faced the ceiling camera. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Reed. The sealed envelope contains notice of a federal safety review. The system may suppress medication alerts under load. Record that I requested contact with Adrian Cross before activation." The camera light remained red. Then the lock clicked. Thomas opened the door, but did not enter. "Boardroom." "Why?" He held the envelope now. "Mr. Crawford wants to hear you refuse in front of witnesses." Evelyn stepped into the corridor. Thomas returned her phone, not the envelope. On the dark screen, Maggie's face waited beneath a new message from Adrian. Elevator. 32. At 8:09 a.m., Milo locked himself inside a vacant interview room and called St. Anne's test unit. A woman answered. "Clinical Systems. My name is Milo Chen. I'm with Nova Crest. I need to verify an overnight alert." You need authorization. I know. Please check whether a conflict warning from 1:14 a.m. arrived on time. There was a pause, then keyboard clicks. Who gave you this number? No one. That is not reassuring. My badge may stop working in 10 minutes. The woman exhaled. Hold. The room was warm and smelled of dust. Through the glass, employees hurried toward the boardroom while the launch clock fell below 1 hour. Milo gripped the phone until Janet Hall returned. I'm Janet, charge nurse, 47, and I dislike being dragged into corporate panic. Did the alert arrive? It appeared at 1:21. Milo stared at the wall. 7 minutes. 7 minutes and 4 seconds. We caught the conflict because a pharmacist checked manually. Was anyone harmed? No. But your system said there was no pending warning. Can you send the log? Not to an intern. Send it to your compliance archive. Mark it urgent. Janet's voice softened. Son, are you about to lose your job? Probably. Then spell your name. Across the floor, Nathan sat at a terminal with Lydia's deletion order. His hand hovered over the command. Sarah entered and placed her phone beside him. I recorded everything. That may not protect you. It may protect someone else. Nathan looked at Owen's photograph on his lock screen. The boy's paper moon was crooked. My insurance ends if they fire me. Sarah nodded. My mother's rent comes. Neither moved. Then Nathan opened a hidden recovery folder. The logs replicated at 7:43, he said. One copy went to audit storage. Can Lydia reach it? Not without a board credential. Sarah picked up her phone. Margaret Ellis has one. The board member answered on the third ring. Sarah, why are you calling my number? Because the CEO had a cleaner detained for warning him about a clinical delay. Silence. Send me what you have. I'm sending the recording now. Nathan attached the replicated log. The progress bar crawled across the screen. At 28%, Lydia's name appeared on his phone. He declined the call. At 51, Daniel called. He declined that too. At 73, his fingers began to shake. Sarah covered his hand with hers, not to comfort him, but to keep it away from cancel. Look at the screen, she said. The bar reached 100. Copy complete. Nathan leaned back and released a breath. Milo burst in carrying his phone. St. Anne's confirmed, 7 minutes and 4 seconds. Nathan closed his eyes. Sarah's phone chimed. Margaret Ellis had replied with 4 words. Do not start the launch. For the first time, the launch clock looked less like an order. Then every monitor on the floor went black. A second later, the elevators stopped, the lights dimmed, and the building's emergency system announced, Executive Network Isolation in progress. Milo stepped into the corridor. Did they shut us out? Nathan was already standing. No, he said, watching the boardroom doors seal. Someone shut Daniel in. At 8:14 a.m., the executive elevators came back online. The first car opened on 32. Adrian Cross stepped out carrying a closed black umbrella. Rain darkened his coat, and water ran from the ferrule onto the marble. Daniel Crawford waited beside reception. Mr. Cross, he said, offering a hand. We weren't expecting a federal visit. Adrian looked at the hand, then at the sealed boardroom doors. That was the point. Lydia arrived with her silver pen clipped inside a folder. There has been a misunderstanding involving a contractor. Bring her here. Our legal team is handling it, Daniel said. I did not ask for legal. Behind the glass, the launch clock had frozen at 00:53:11. Thomas Blake emerged with Evelyn beside him. Her sleeve was damp, her wet badge hanging from 2 fingers. Adrian's face changed. "Dr. Reed?" Daniel turned slowly. Lydia tightened her grip on the folder. Evelyn stopped several feet away. "You came early. You called me 6 weeks ago. I asked whether you would come if they refused to listen. And did they?" She looked toward the boardroom. Daniel gave a short laugh. "This woman works for our cleaning contractor. She also designed the original emergency routing safeguard your system appears to be misusing." Lydia stepped forward. "That architecture predates our platform." "Parts of it do," Adrian said. "Parts were copied into the compatibility layer restored last quarter." Her pen clicked once. Daniel stared at Evelyn's badge. "Why was none of this disclosed?" "Because titles change behavior." "That is not an answer. It is the answer you demonstrated." Margaret Ellis entered with Milo, Sarah, and Nathan. Margaret did not greet Daniel. "I received a hospital log confirming a 7-minute delay," she said. "I also received an internal recording. You accepted unverified material from junior staff during a security breach. I accepted timestamps." Nathan gripped the back of a chair. "The logs are authentic." Lydia looked at him. "Think carefully." "I have." Sarah raised her phone. "Turn that off," Lydia said. "No." The word landed harder than a shout. Adrian held out his hand to Thomas. "The envelope." Thomas gave it to him. Adrian broke the seal and removed a formal notice from the Office for Clinical Technology Safety. Daniel read the heading. "This is preliminary. It became active when your company detained the reporting party and continued toward launch. We did not detain anyone." Thomas looked down. Evelyn said, "The security room locks from the outside." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Adrian turned to Margaret. "Who can suspend activation?" "The board." "Has it been convened?" "It has now." The sealed doors released with a heavy click. On the wall screen, the red warning reappeared beneath the frozen countdown. Daniel moved toward the head chair. Margaret stepped in front of him. "Not yet." For the first time that morning, he had to choose another seat. Adrian remained beside Evelyn while the others filed in. "Are you ready to tell them who you are?" She looked through the glass at the warning everyone had tried to erase. "No," she said. "First, they need to hear what they did." At 8:21 a.m., the boardroom doors closed. Adrian remained standing. Evelyn chose the chair nearest the wall, leaving the head of the table empty. Her badge lay beside her gloves. Daniel Crawford sat 2 seats away. "If she has a complaint, let her state it." Margaret Ellis faced him. "You will listen." The launch clock stayed frozen at 00:53:11. Adrian placed the federal notice on the glass. "The board needs to know why Dr. Evelyn Reed was in this building." Lydia's pen stopped. Daniel frowned. "Doctor?" 19 years ago, Adrian said, she designed Novacrest's first emergency routing safeguards. She also co-founded this company. Daniel gave a smile. "That is not in our corporate history." "It was removed at her request." "Why?" Evelyn touched the photograph in her pocket. "Because my daughter died while I was defending a launch schedule." Milo lowered his eyes. Sarah tightened her grip on her phone. Evelyn smoothed the wet badge flat. The hospital system delayed an alert. Not this platform, but the logic was familiar. A warning entered correctly, then disappeared into a priority route no one wanted to question. Nathan's chair creaked. "I left. I sold most of my position and placed the rest in a protective trust." Daniel leaned forward. "You still own shares?" "One founder's share." Lydia's face changed. Margaret asked, "What authority does it carry?" "The right to trigger an independent safety review if leadership suppresses clinical risk." Daniel stared at Adrian. "You knew?" I verified it 6 weeks ago. And you let her work here in disguise? I did not arrange her employment. Evelyn looked at the cleaning cart reflected in the glass. I applied through the contractor after receiving 3 anonymous reports. I needed to know whether people feared the software or feared speaking. Adrian opened another folder. Dr. Reed documented altered summaries, restricted access, and pressure to delete test data. Daniel gripped the table. She manipulated employees. She asked questions, Milo said. You are not part of this discussion. Margaret replied, He is now. Evelyn placed the photograph beside her badge. Maggie's yellow scarf had faded along the fold. I did not return for your chair, she said. I came because someone wrote, We are being trained to confuse obedience with safety. Nathan inhaled. That was me. Lydia turned. You sent the reports? The first. 2 engineers sent the others. Daniel pushed back. This is an ambush. No, Evelyn said. You were warned. Adrian slid a document toward Margaret. Beneath Evelyn's signature was the original safeguard charter. Margaret read aloud. Any employee, contractor, or clinical partner may halt deployment when unresolved patient safety risk exists. Her gaze moved to the wet badge. Daniel removed his hand from the head chair. Adrian faced Evelyn. For the record, state your name and role. Dr. Evelyn Margaret Reed, co-founder of Novacrest Health Technologies, original chief safety architect, reporting witness. Through the glass, employees had gathered in the corridor. Lydia whispered, What happens now? Evelyn turned toward the screen. Now we stop pretending those missing 7 minutes belong to no one. At 8:29 a.m., Margaret Ellis connected Sarah's phone to the boardroom screen. The speakers crackled. Daniel's recorded voice filled the room. Remove the exception from the summary. Then Lydia. They won't see it. No one shifted. Rain ticked against the glass, and the cleaning cart stood reflected behind Evelyn. Daniel reached for the remote. This recording was made without consent. Adrian covered it with one hand. Its admissibility will be reviewed. Its meaning is already clear. Sarah sat near the door, shoulders rigid. I recorded because every time someone spoke quietly, the answer became quieter. Lydia looked at her. You worked for me. I worked near you. The next file opened. 3 hospital logs, each marked by the same red delay. Nathan stood. His chair struck the wall. The alerts were generated on time, he said. The hold occurred inside the restored compatibility route. I knew the test set was incomplete. I also knew the delay was real. Daniel folded his hands. And yet, you signed the summary. Nathan's eyes moved to Owen's photograph on his phone. Yes. Then this is your failure. Nathan's fingers pressed against the table. I was afraid you would fire me. That does not excuse falsifying a report. No, it explains why your system worked. The room went still. Lydia's silver pen slipped from her hand and rolled across the glass. It stopped beside Evelyn's damp badge. Margaret opened the email archive. Subject: Suppress until post-launch. Lydia closed her eyes. Daniel looked at her. You wrote that? You told me the board could not see the warning before the presentation. I told you to verify it. You told me clean numbers at 8. He turned toward Adrian. This is being stripped of context. Evelyn spoke softly. Then provide the context. Daniel's mouth tightened. On the screen, Sarah's recording resumed. Lydia's voice said, From now on, the cleaner stays away from anything that matters. A director removed his glasses and polished lenses already clean. Margaret asked, Dr. Reed, do you wish to respond? No. You were publicly removed and detained. The evidence does not improve because I describe how it felt. Lydia stared at the pen beside the badge. I did not know who you were. That is the problem, Evelyn said. Sarah lowered her phone. Nathan sat down slowly. Adrian projected the audit trail. Each deletion carried a time, a credential, and a restored copy. Milo's partial export had captured the first 12%. Nathan's backup held the rest. Janet Hall's hospital log completed the sequence. 7 minutes and 4 seconds, Adrian said. Long enough for a warning to exist, yet remain invisible to the person depending on it. Daniel stood. We have not harmed anyone. Evelyn's thumb rested on the worn edge of Maggie's photograph. Not today. The clock above the screen flickered back to life. 0:07. A synthetic voice announced, "Launch sequence resuming." A cold blue light swept across the table. Every face turned toward the red numbers. Margaret reached for the authorization panel, but Daniel's account was still listed as final approver. 7 seconds remained. Daniel, remove your authorization. Margaret's voice cut through the countdown. 00:06. Daniel stood beside the panel. If we interrupt now, every pilot hospital will see a failed launch. 00:05. They will see a delayed launch, Adrian said. Lydia pushed back her chair. Daniel. He did not look at her. 00:04. Evelyn crossed the room without hurrying. Blue light washed over her damp uniform. Your name is still on the release, she said. 00:03. Daniel touched the screen. Nathan rose so fast his chair tipped over. Don't. 00:02. Rain slid down the windows. 00:01. Margaret entered her board credential and pressed suspend. The display went black. Then one line appeared. Deployment halted by governance override. No one applauded. Daniel stared at the dead countdown. Do you understand what you've done? Yes, Margaret said. You damaged this company in front of every partner we have. Evelyn looked at Maggie's photograph. A company can survive embarrassment. At 8:33 a.m., Adrian sealed the launch server and ordered the pilot hospitals notified. Nathan called Janet Hall. We suspended activation, he said. Good, Janet replied. Send us the corrected protocol before anyone turns it back on. Milo compiled logs. Sarah wrote each instruction by hand. Lydia stood by the window, her silver pen beside Evelyn's wet badge. Margaret opened an emergency board session. First motion, suspend Daniel Crawford from executive authority pending independent review. Daniel gave a quiet laugh. On the word of a cleaner? On evidence from Dr. Reed, Mr. Chen, Ms. Kim, Dr. Cole, and the hospital record. The vote appeared on separate screens. One by one, green lights replaced gray. Approved. Thomas Blake entered. Mr. Crawford, I need your executive badge. Daniel pulled it from his jacket, but the clip caught. His fingers fumbled twice before it came free. He set it near Evelyn's blurred contractor card. The executive badge was dry and polished. Hers still smelled faintly of soap and rain. Lydia's suspension followed. She did not argue. When Margaret invited a statement, Lydia picked up her pen, turned it once, and set it down. I knew the report was incomplete, she said. I told myself incomplete was not the same as false. Adrian ordered a 72-hour audit of every routed clinical alert from the pilot period. Before noon, the first findings arrived. No confirmed patient harm, but 11 warnings had exceeded the approved delay. Evelyn read each timestamp. At 12:16 p.m., she left alone. The rain had stopped. Cold sunlight shone on the pavement as she walked to a memorial garden behind an old brick hospital. She sat beneath a bare maple and unfolded Maggie's photograph. The yellow scarf had faded at the crease. "I was late once," Evelyn whispered. "Not this time." She stayed until the wind lifted the picture's corner. Her phone vibrated with Margaret's message. "No injuries reported. Review confirmed preventable risk." We listened. Evelyn closed her eyes. Back at Nova Crest, the launch screen had been removed from the boardroom wall. 4 pale mounting marks remained, and 1 loose cable still blinked red. At 9 a.m. the next Monday, Evelyn carried a folding chair into the boardroom. Daniel Crawford's leather seat and nameplate were gone. 4 pale marks showed where the launch screen had hung. 1 cable still blinked red. Margaret watched her place it at the head of the table. "That is not staying there," Professor Helen Ortiz said. She was 50, silver-haired, and led the new Ethics Commission. She pressed 1 shoe against the chair. "It wobbles." Evelyn tested it. It clicked. "Then it fits the company." Milo laughed before checking who else had. Around the table sat engineers, board members, and 3 cleaners in uniform. Sarah set identical paper cups at every seat. Helen opened a document. "We need a rule that works before anyone knows whether the person speaking is important." Nathan folded his hands. "Employees can already report concerns." "Reporting is not stopping," Evelyn said. A senior director shifted. "Letting anyone halt operations invites abuse." Janet Hall appeared on the wall screen from St. Anne's. "So does letting 1 executive ignore 7 minutes." Helen typed, "Stop work authority." "Who qualifies?" Evelyn turned toward Rosa Alvarez, 60, a cleaner with red knuckles and a heavy keyring. "Everyone." Rosa frowned. "Even us?" "Especially anyone who sees what others step over." The lawyer cleared his throat. "There must be thresholds." "A specific risk," Evelyn said. "A recorded reason. Immediate review outside the reporting line. No retaliation while the review remains open." "And if the concern is wrong?" "The process corrects it." "And if it is right?" No one answered. Helen added, "Contractors included." At 10:18, they argued over control of the reporting channel. Evelyn turned her cup handle toward the lawyer. "The people who buried the warning cannot own the mailbox." "Independent intake," Helen said. "Direct access to the commission. Quarterly anonymized outcomes." Sarah raised her hand halfway. "Can recordings be submitted?" The lawyer inhaled. "They can," Margaret said. Sarah lowered her hand, but not her eyes. By noon, the policy had 5 pages of exceptions. Evelyn borrowed Helen's pen and crossed out 3 words. Helen leaned closer. "When reasonably practicable." "That is where courage goes to disappear." Nathan nodded once. The exception was removed. At 1:40 p.m., training began in the cafeteria. Executives sat beside maintenance workers at identical tables. Helen presented a simulated alert delay. "What do you do?" A vice president reached for the escalation chart. Rosa raised her hand. "Stop the launch." "On whose authority?" Rosa looked toward Evelyn. "Mine." The soft word crossed the room. Helen nodded. "Correct." Afterward, Margaret found Evelyn near the lockers. "The board wants you as interim CEO." "No. You could rebuild this place." "I am rebuilding the part that decides who gets heard." Margaret glanced at the folding chair. "And after that?" Evelyn opened her locker. Maggie's photograph rested above the neatly folded uniform. "Someone else can sit there." She returned to the boardroom, where the policy waited for signatures. At the bottom of the first page, beneath the executives, Rosa Alvarez had signed first. 6 months later, the new alert dashboard at St. Anne's showed green across every route. Janet Hall stood beside a pharmacist while a conflict warning appeared in less than 2 seconds. She tapped the screen, then called Nathan. "It arrived before I could complain," she said. "That may be our strongest benchmark." Nathan now led clinical safety testing under Helen Ortiz's commission. Results went to the board and hospitals. Milo worked beside him as a full-time systems analyst. His temporary badge had been replaced, but he still wore it crooked. At Novacrest, Sarah ran the independent reporting office. The first quarterly report listed 37 concerns, 9 halted processes, and 0 retaliation cases. Rosa Alvarez read the figures aloud during training. "People use the button?" "They did," Sarah said. "Good." Rosa placed her heavy key ring on the table and signed before any executive did. Daniel Crawford resigned after investigators confirmed that he had overridden warnings and pressured staff to present incomplete findings. His separation agreement barred him from publicly defending the launch decision. He sent Evelyn one letter. There were no excuses inside. "I believed delay was failure." I made silence the price of staying. Evelyn folded the page and returned it to the envelope. Lydia Voss was removed from operations. Months later, she joined a nonprofit compliance program as a junior advisor. Her first assignment was to listen to anonymous workers without correcting their language. "You don't owe me approval," she told Evelyn after one session. "No," Evelyn said, "but you owe them attention." On an October evening, Evelyn entered the executive floor for the last time. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and rain moved through an open window. The old launch screen was gone. In its place hung the stop work policy. A folding chair still stood at the head of the boardroom table. Margaret found Evelyn beside it. "You could still take the CEO role." "I know." "And?" Evelyn tested the chair. It no longer wobbled. "Leave it for someone who needs the title less." She opened her old locker in the service corridor. The uniform lay folded beneath Maggie's photograph. The name badge, once blurred by soapy water, rested on top. Evelyn wiped the plastic with her thumb and pinned it to the uniform one final time. Milo appeared at the door. "They're waiting downstairs." "For what?" "The dedication." The new safety laboratory occupied the first floor, where every employee passed each morning. Engineers, cleaners, nurses, and board members gathered beneath warm lights. Nathan stood with Owen, now 8, holding a paper moon. Sarah kept her phone in her pocket. Helen pulled away the cloth covering the plaque. The Maggie Reed Laboratory for Clinical Safety. Below it, in smaller letters, "Anyone may stop the line." No one applauded at first. Evelyn touched Maggie's photograph through her coat pocket. "She would have corrected the wording," Adrian said. "She would have corrected everything." Then Rosa began clapping. Others joined, not loudly, but steadily. Later, when the building had emptied, Evelyn walked the corridor alone. The lights shut off section by section behind her. At the laboratory door, one small lamp remained on above Maggie's name. Evelyn looked back once, then she left the light burning. Have you ever seen someone ignored because of their job title, only for the truth to prove that their voice mattered most? Share your story in the comments, especially if you witnessed a warning dismissed, a quiet person underestimated, or a workplace changed because someone finally spoke up. Share this story with someone who believes dignity and justice should never depend on status. Subscribe for more stories about fairness, quiet resilience, accountability, and the kinds of system changes that begin with one person refusing to look away. And when you hear a voice others are too comfortable to dismiss, remember Evelyn's question. Is the warning really small, or have we simply decided the person giving it is?